recess today. Is there any changes to the agenda that have been published? Anybody have any changes? There's none, Mr. Chairman. I guess we're ready to move on to the discussion agenda items. First item we have is an ECA rate adjustment. This year's budget included an increase in the ECA of 1 cent per kilowatt hour effective December 1st of 2016. Today we're recommending that you approve an increase of ½ cent per kilowatt hour, 50% of the budgeted amount. While we always strive to avoid rate increases, the next best thing we can do is to reduce the size of increases that we know are necessary. And as you know, we've been tracking the performance of the ECA fund through the year. And because of the combination of cost controls that we've taken, as well as stronger wholesale sales, we're recommending that the increase be half of what was originally budgeted. This is a 3.7% overall rate increase for the average residential customer. It equates to about $4 a month for the average residential customer. I'll remind you that the ECA is a tracking mechanism that we use to track costs that are really out of our control, such as fuel costs, purchase power costs, and wholesale revenues, whether they be above budget, below budget, positive net income, or negative. So the ECA is adjusted periodically in order to reflect those costs. So with that, I can go ahead and answer any questions that the commission might have about the recommendation.
What would be the ramification if we postpone this longer?
You would exceed the $10 million ECA balance that's required to be maintained in the governing policy.
Does that policy set as an arbitrary number, or is that tied to bond covenants?
It is not tied to bond covenants. It's your policy.
So we could adjust that, to temporarily amend that to let it go beyond 10 million.
We could. We don't recommend that. Because, we'll end up adversely affecting our overall financial targets, which would be debt coverage and days cash. So if we don't collect the money, it still looks as like a liability on there. It shows up as cash, but it's not, it's a non-cash transaction item on the balance sheet.
I mean, this still includes, we're still going to put 4 million.
Correct.
So that's kind of almost raised it a little bit right there.
Well, the budget included the assumption that we use $4 million
Yes.
from reserves to mitigate the shortfall that we anticipated. We still would anticipate using that $4 million.
But we haven't done that yet.
No, but if you didn't use it, then you'd certainly
Oh, you'd have to, yes. But the ECA account balance would grow above 10 million, which is by your policy prohibited. So you would have to amend the policy.
How long ago was that a policy established?
2012.
2012, so it's been,
Yeah.
and it's worked for those years.
It has, the policy requires, is a two-way policy. It only allows us to owe customers 10 million and customers to owe us 10 million. The intention of having the balance is to avoid rate action every time revenues don't match expenses. So by having that $20 million window, we can keep rates stable. But we just find ourselves in a position now where, in order to stay under that 10 million, we need to raise this rate.
But when you present a plan next month to our long-range outcomes of what we're going to have to do, ECA is a player in that.
It is a source of revenues, yes it is, obviously.
and then how that will all fit into the future between the base and the ECA and things you're going to do. I just didn't know if that's a more appropriate time to look at all of this at one time, or if you have to have that now, or say we haven't used the reserves yet.
Well, the actions that we'll recommend as part of the integrated resource plan actions next month will not affect cash flows this year or next year.
It won't affect any.
Probably won't really materially impact our need from a revenue perspective until 2020. So this action today is necessary just to maintain current obligations, current governance policies.
And this keeps us below for fiscal year 2017.
Keeps us right at the 10.
But
Just
beyond that,
there could be additional adjustments.
depending on how it
Right.
I guess the good news is it's half what you thought it might be.
Well, it was heartening to see it go down. I think nobody likes to raise rates, but it's looking a lot better than it did earlier in the year.
And these projections take into consideration the last 2 months'
They do.
financials.
Yeah, if you look at the document that was provided to you, the draft, we anticipate that the half a cent will get us right to the 10 million. Now, there's still some risk that we could exceed that depending on how the market performs and how the units perform through the balance of this fiscal year. But we believe that the risk-weighted outcome is such that this should be sufficient to keep us under the 10 million.
If natural gas prices or futures are dropping, that could be more important.
It could, I mean, that would put us in even a deeper hole if we did not take action today.
Move for approval of recommendation.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. The next item we have is just a minor adjustment. You recall last month you agreed to amend our telecom rates for our larger customers. We had a misprint in the table that was approved, and we're simply asking you to approve this revised table that corrects that misprint.
Make a motion to approve.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Item C13 on the agenda is the United Way Company match.
Just by the way, have you had any feedback on this in the last month since we approved the changes, or most of the changes were there? It's been-
Not yet.
Not
No,
yet.
not yet.
I thought it might be too early, but I just thought, I had some good news too.
Okay, the next item we have for your consideration is our annual United Way fund. We had another successful year this year in our United Way drive. We had a 5.4% increase in employee contributions. I think it's the record high that we've had, at least in the last 10 years that we've looked back, so we feel very good. With lower number of employees, we still are getting higher contribution to United Way. And as has been the tradition of this commission, and as we have budgeted, this commission generally grants a matching amount for the benefit of United Way. So I would ask for a motion to approve the memo that authorizes $66,288.94 as a match by the commission.
Motion approved.
Second.
No discussion?
Yeah, at what point of this campaign do we tell the employees we're going to match? Or do we tell them that, or do we tell them it's traditionally, or it's budgeted?
We tell them it's
keep
budgeted.
reference every year, they've already been told we're going to match it.
We tell them it's budgeted, and, it's your prerogative as to whether or not you want to grant the match or not. But we do tell them that it is budgeted.
Well, you remember last year, we were in the same situation, and it was on the commission and said, well, we've already told the employees we need to stand by that commitment.
Correct. And I think, Commissioner, what we discussed what this board discussed when it came up was that the appropriate time, if we were going to make a change, was at the time that you approved the budget.
I agree. But at the same time, it still requires our approval for there. Why do we have this discussion now, before the campaign starts? And approve the match up to a dollar amount before we go in there, so you don't put us in a position where now the employees are led to believe one thing, and then we're stuck, either we go against what they've been led to believe, or we go forward.
Yeah. You know, it's a fair question, and I think it's one that this commission could provide us direction on how you want us to proceed in the future. My understanding is that traditionally, it's been an opportunity for the commission to confirm its approval of the budget amount. And I don't know that I defer to council to find out whether it's absolutely necessary that you vote on
Is that all?
I would say that it still needs to be acted upon. The fact that it's budgeted doesn't mean it necessarily will be spent.
Just a point of information, what all do we match? Do we match any charitable contribution that?
No, just
any
United
employees-
Way. Just the United Way commitments that we get from employees.
Okay,
$1 for a dollar.
I noticed in one of our expenditures this month that it was a match for East Side Elementary School PTO. And that doesn't sound like United Way to me, but.
Yeah.
No, right. I don't budget that, but it's included, I believe, in the
Yeah,
HR
we give
budget.
I think it's $10, but it's not a match, it's we give them, if you're part of your, or that organization, we will give them $10, I think it is.
Yeah.
I have to go back and look, but I think we give $10 per person.
I think
It's
it's
on those
their-
committees and those types of things.
Michael, I think it's their PTO fee is
Yeah.
covered.
But it's not a match, the employee doesn't put up anything, it's just us contributing to
It sort of
them.
sounded like that the way it was listed on, but, okay.
Well, I mean, I'd like, I'm sorry.
Just a point of information, I
Yeah.
think if we were matching every charitable
No, we do not.
contribution, anybody gave to
Absolutely
anything,
not.
that,
I'd like to commend the employees on their generosity, that I do appreciate. I would like to have this discussion before the campaign starts and give our affirmation then. You're right, Terry, this discussion needs to be had budget time. We've had this, it was approved, so I want, I'm going to vote yes today because we've already had this discussion, but my vote yes does not mean I approve that agree that we should be doing this.
Understand.
And I think to add, that if we do approve, I think we should probably match to a limit.
Yeah, I think
We would give it a dead defined amount, whether it's 60,000, 70,000.
Well, basically,
Or
the
20,
limit,
50.
it's going to be what we budgeted anyway.
Right.
And take action to go beyond that anyway.
Correct. Correct.
So we could go and not to exceed, match not to exceed what's been budgeted.
We will take that into account.
Why has United Way been singled out as the one where we would match? There's other organizations that like to have the same opportunity. Salvation Army, UNICEF, Red Cross, what place.
Well, I think, my understanding is it's been a tradition, and that's why we matched it. It also incentivizes employees, obviously, to give, because their dollars go twice as far. And that's just been the history here at OMU. As far as, the Salvation Army, we do provide funds for the heating assistance program through the Salvation Army. And that's a separate budget item, line item that we provide for the Salvation Army. I believe that's our second largest contribution that we provide behind this contribution each year.
Ted, if I might address that as well, I think, and this is my understanding of the history of that, is it was an opportunity to provide funds to a number of organizations in the community. And I don't know the number that are served by United Way. I think we include those in this employees. How many agencies? Yeah. So I think that it was an opportunity to have a broader reach, was the initial decision.
I have curiosity because I know we're serious discussion. I said, all this is like through payroll deduction, so how do we get money from retirees?
Yeah.
Or you can have it for payroll, they can just write a check.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's an option for our employees, if they want to write a one-time check, they can do that.
That's great, thanks. Any other further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye. All right. Next item we have is our consent agenda item. And I'll point out that the DNF that's still outstanding on the Kentucky Municipal Energy Agency is not included here. We are still waiting to get confirmation from the agency's consultant on the allocation of costs for the year. But we'll have that next month. We just had a board meeting yesterday. Motion to approve?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Oh, no discussion? Oh,
I would like, Michael, just notice on the personnel items, there's several new positions. How are things going now with the change in retirement and all the concerns about the future of Elmer Smith? And how is that going?
At this point, we're fine. I mean, we're not losing a lot of employees. We are having a, normal turnover for us, but we are expecting when the announcements come out with the IRP and things of that nature, and the certainty out the power plant, that we are going to have to look at some retention strategies. And we're trying to move employees around. We moved a meter reader over to the telecom shop and things of that nature, so we are trying to take employees that might just be displaced in other areas and some through attrition. So no issues at this point, but we do foresee that the next 6 years could be very difficult if we don't have proper retention strategies.
Thanks.
Well, a couple of people that retired, how long have they been with us?
Let's see here. You got Selena's. You're looking at she's 30, 27.
27.
And Stevens, John Stevens. I don't know how long she's been
I
there.
think Joanne, she's almost 20.
Yeah. So there's normal retirements there. She reached
We
the
offer
age.
Appreciation of
Oh,
some
yeah.
kind for the.
Oh yeah, we I don't know if you've had their parties yet or not, but the retirement
Selena's
parties.
at the end of this month, and Joanne will be at the end of December.
Yeah.
Good.
And we celebrate around here, especially when you've been here that long.
Yeah, all employees get a plaque for their years of service, so 5 years.
A retirement gift up to how many years you served.
Every 5 years they get a gift as well.
It's something, it would be a nice gesture, sometimes we send a card to retirees to sign as a commission.
I always send one in your stead for each one.
Just in case you see one. Just in case you see one out there.
Yeah, you're already sending one.
Oh, y'all can't make me laugh.
right. Now they know. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. All right, the next item, Mr. Chairman, is our performance report, a monthly general manager's report. The first item on the report is a summary of where we stand with respect to the storm we had in July, the July 8th storm, where we had several $100,000 of damages to the system, 360,000 plus. And as you can see from the report, we have now confirmation from FEMA that we will receive all but $15,802 back in reimbursement.
When do you actually get the money?
Good luck. Well, it takes a while.
Is that in today's dollars?
It takes a while. It's hard to tell, but we hope within a year we'll have the money. So
That'd be optimistic.
that'd be optimistic. The last time when we had the ice storm, and I don't remember what year the ice storm was, the last payment we received.
2009.
Yes.
Last payment we received was last year, so it takes a while. Now, the bulk of it was paid relatively quickly, but I don't know what the particulars on why it takes so long, but I think there's some verification and things like that that take place.
With the new administration, it's going to get here much, much quicker.
That's right, if it gets here at all. The second item I wanted to talk about, as you'll see in our financial report, is the October weather. October, 7.1 degrees warmer than normal. As I don't need to tell you, it was a warm October. That translated into significantly higher wholesale sales as well as retail sales. So 3% more retail sales and higher wholesale prices as a result of the nature of the business, which is the period when many generating units are taken offline for maintenance. With higher electric demands, that created higher demand for electric and less supply, and consequently prices were up. Unfortunately, during the last 2 weeks of October, there was some transmission work being done that limited the amount of energy that we could export to the marketplace. So we would have, had that not happened, we would have actually had even a better performance. But it is necessary from a reliability perspective to do these repairs on the transmission grid.
So there's no provisions in the capacity market to flip that when we can't get our excess on there?
Now, we try to work with the transmission owners that are doing the work to try to reschedule that into periods where we think prices and demand are going to be the lowest. Traditionally, in late October, that's the period of time when air conditioning load's low, there's really very little heating load because the weather's so mild, and therefore, you know, they have to bring in contract crews and things like that. So it's tough to reschedule. But that particular outage, we did push back, I believe.
It was supposed to be done in summer.
Yeah.
And we pushed it to the end of October.
Right, so, you know, we work with the transmission owners to move that back to periods where we think will be the most beneficial for
But
us.
there's nothing in those contracts where we lease the use of those lines, for provisions if we can't get our power out, we don't get compensated.
No. No. Talk a little bit about natural gas prices. One of the reasons why our wholesale unit performed so well through the year was the fact that natural gas prices were actually increasing. And with the prolonged hot weather, abnormally warm weather, futures markets for natural gas started to react to that about 3 or 4 weeks ago. And we've seen gas prices in the futures market fall about 27% in the last 3.5 weeks. It's bringing down power prices as well, but because we aggressively hedge in the futures market, our electric wholesale length, we were able to lock in those revenue sources. But this warm weather is going to be in the 70s, upper 70s today. Obviously, natural gas is not being consumed for electric production, nor is it being consumed for space heating. And we're now projecting all-time record storage levels in the natural gas area as we go into the December period. Item 4 is the integrated resource plan. As you recall, December 2nd, your next work session, we'll be providing with you, or to you, a high-level overview of the integrated resource plan. And then on December 15th, we'll be actually issuing the report on the integrated resource plan. The revised estimates for the cabin expansion have been completed. I believe I got the right number in here, Kevin, didn't I?
I think if you add the 10% contingency, you've got the right number.
Okay. So it's, so that'd be total $47 million is what the estimate is now for the cabin treatment plant.
So is it 47 plus or minus 10, or is it 47?
Well, the revised estimate was $44 million, which included the 10%. And then we've got $3 million that we've already bonded for the engineering, so that makes the total come in right at the 47.
So we're at this point, we're starting to gear up for our cost of service study to figure out what that's going to be to each rate class, as well as we're working with our wholesale customers, the water districts, on trying to finalize what their allocation of those costs would be. Once we complete that, we'll be bringing a recommendation forward to you to request bond authority from the City Commission and rate authority from the City Commission to move forward with this project. I would expect that to be sometime in the first quarter next year. Item 6, Phase 2 of the Fiber to the Home project continues, is under construction. The first section of that will be ready for customer installations just after Thanksgiving, so we should be able to start getting some revenues. We have a fairly robust backlog or orders from customers in the areas where we're doing the rollout of Phase 2. The rest of the project area will be ready for installation in December and January. And you've approved the United Way campaign. I want to thank Lynn for her leadership of the United Way campaign. Each year we appoint an executive to lead that, and Lynn did an exceptional job this year, as is evidenced by the fact that we had a 5.5% increase over last year. So thank you, Lynn, for the great work. All right, next we have our financial report. Lynn?
Okay. This changed from the original one. We've got a revised one with the 0.005% cents per kilowatt hour for the ACA increase for my projected at the bottom. Okay. The consolidated electric system net income is up 34.7% better than budget fiscal year to date. The retail system, the sales for the month of October were 8.4% above budget, and they're up 5.4% fiscal year to date. The fiscal year to date actual retail performance without the ECA adjustment, we're up 33.6% above budget. On the wholesale system, the megawatt hour sales, of course, for October, we had reserve shutdown budgeted. So they're up 396% above budget for the sales, and we're up 25.7% fiscal year to date on the megawatt hour sales. The fiscal year to date net income is up 20.1% better than budget. Telecommunications, we're up 109,000 better than budget, and on the water system, we're up 301,000 better than budget. You can see on there our ECA balance that customers owe OMU currently is $8.6 million. Now the table at the bottom reflects the reduction of revenues for the ECA rate. So
Just to be clear, the prior months that you saw included the assumption of a 1 cent increase, and that's why this is adjusted down based on the 0.5 cent that you just.
Okay, so we expect the consolidated electric system net income to come in at 9% better than budget as of May 31, 2017. The retail without ECA adjustment net income, we expect 12.2% better than budget. Wholesale around 7.7% better than budget. The telecommunication system, 109,000 better than budget, and the water system around 301,000 better than budget. Is there any questions?
No, but I just think, again, and JT has pointed out this several times, especially in light of the rate increase we just had. A lot of people are just going to, all they're going to hear is rate increase. If you would carve out wholesale, you would see we actually are doing well. I mean, in light of everything that's going on, it's just that wholesale component that we can't control. Because I've already had people tell me, we just watch our cost and watch what we're doing, and we're doing that.
Yeah.
And we're performing well everywhere except wholesale, and so I just think it's important to note that, like what we just did.
Yeah, I mean, you have to recognize that this budget that we're working against is a very, very aggressive budget. And the fact that we're really doing much better on both the expense and revenue side speaks volumes for the efforts that employees are taking and the seriousness that they understand that these implications are for ratepayers.
And I'm afraid that's going to get lost in this, when we're over to talk about rate increases.
Yeah. The next item, Mr. Chairman, that I have is the governance items, the policy compliance reports. We had 3 governance policy items. I found no shortcomings on our adherence to those governance policies.
Because I do not.
The next item I have is under other business, telecom capital impact on base rates. I had issued a memo that has been posted for you to look at. I think Commissioner Cecil, last time we met, expressed a desire to have some evaluation of if we did not invest what we're projecting to be an expenditure of some $19 million for the build-out of fiber to the home business for the rest of the city, what would the impact on rates be? The memo that was provided, I believe, provides the answers to those questions. But I want to point out that the 19 million plus that we're anticipating asking for authority on is a decision that this commission will be asked to make next year when we prepare our budget for fiscal year 18. We provided that in our 5-year projection only because we project and we believe that it is a wise investment, and we will seek approval of that. So I don't want to leave you with the impression that this is a done deal. It's anything but a done deal. That will require not only your approval, but it will also require city commission approval, as we would have to go to the debt markets in order to raise that money.
Yeah, well, I get it. I mean, I want to thank, Lynn, Jason, Chris for that. I mean, basically, you're deferring the full debt service until cash flow is positive. I get that. But I guess what I'm interested in, one of the questions in that memo, though, is when we talk about in the future that you're going to make some adjustments from the ECA and include that in the base rate, primarily because of unrecoverable fixed costs in ECA. What are those unrecoverable fixed costs in ECA?
Well, it's debt and interest expense primarily.
Okay, it's primarily debt.
So the way the ECA works today is we take ECA revenues that come in, wholesale revenues that come in. We first allocate those revenues against variable costs, fuel, ammonia, limestone, the things that are necessary that we can pass through. Anything that's left over gets allocated against the debt burden associated with the part of the generation that's not in the retail rate base. So to the extent that we're not selling megawatt hours when we shut down a unit, and we're not incurring those expenses, we're not flowing monies through the ECA. And because we're not flowing monies through the ECA, we don't have a revenues, an allocation of those fixed costs that was going into the ECA. So we don't have as many megawatt hours going in the wholesale market. We actually exceed the variable cost. Remember I said the allocation is first a variable. If we're not recovering enough to cover variable, then it goes through the ECA.
And that will be a future discussion.
It will. Yeah, any ECA or ECCA investment requires your approval. We don't have the ability to make those adjustments. The ECCA does have a monthly adjustment that's made that you've authorized us to make, but those are on an as-incurred pass-through basis.
Thank you for the bill. Love that.
Could you explain that graph a little bit to me there? You got forecast without new telecom debt, and then you got forecast without new telecom debt. So you got, they
Yeah.
both say without, and not,
Yeah.
so.
So both of those cases assume that we would not issue debt. So the question that came was, well, if you didn't issue the debt and you didn't incur that debt expense, what would the impact be on rates? Okay. So both of the scenarios that we evaluate there are without issuing that new debt. And as you see, both of those don't really impact the 9.5%. What happens here is we don't issue the debt and we don't increase the base rates. So if we don't increase the base rates here, 0 and 0, we drop below our debt service cash reserve coverage.
Okay.
And we drop well below the debt covenants here to 1.0.
But you don't, you highlighted at 1.39, but that, it's not that year that you don't drop below it those years.
Right, those are below your 1.5, 1.50.
Down below you say
objective.
ours is 1.25.
1.25 to 1.5, your top end, it's a range. Target 1.5, minimum 1.25. So you don't hit the target here.
Right, but down in your description below, the minimum of 1.25, you don't mention the 1.5 down below there.
1.25 is in the bond covenant, but 1.50 is what we need to pay our bills. So that's the target we get.
Yeah. But you just didn't mention it in the part down below.
Okay.
Good question.
So that's a good
So
question. Yeah.
it said your financial reserve policy is 1.25, but what you're saying ours is 1.5, not 1.25.
The debt service coverage is 1.25 in the
Right.
bond covenant.
But ours is,
But we've got, it's not really written anywhere 1.50, it's a comfort
okay.
level.
I'm sorry if I
Okay,
didn't
well,
explain that correctly.
I'm just trying to,
Yeah.
is it,
But all we tried to do here, Commissioner, was show you that without an increase here,
yeah.
we don't meet our financial metrics. With the rate increase and without the debt, the new debt, we do meet them with the same 9.5.
Okay.
So bottom line here is that the telecom investment is not driving any rate increase for the electric system at all.
Okay.
That should be the takeaway. Another thing I want to point out is that you shouldn't get fixed on that 9.5% because while that may be going up, base rate, the ECA and ECA are coming down. And so the net effect on customers is well below 9.5%.
But to clarify, it doesn't impact if our projections of sales are correct.
That's correct. Yes.
I want to mention one more thing, Dr. Maddox. On the 1.25, that does not include deducting the city transfer. So that's why that 1.50 is important.
The rating agencies have to look at after the dividend payment.
So if we drop down below 1.25, we won't have to give the city any money, but I'm just kidding.
No, that's how the net
I'm just read it.
I hope I haven't confused you more. My intent was to just demonstrate that
Yeah.
the impact of the potential borrowing does not impact electric rates. In fact, I would argue that the net income that the business throws off, the telecom business, based on the 20% capture rate, helps mitigate electric rates.
They're going to certainly pay their way.
Yes.
I love that. So. Pressure's on, right?
All right, upcoming meetings.
Nothing new.
These will be important meetings, December 2nd. Again, our main topic there will be to talk about the integrated resource plan. December 15th, our normal meeting. We've got a number of items, but we'll also provide more detail on the integrated resource plan in the form of a report that will be available to the public as well. All right. Mr. Chairman, do you have anything else? Any commissioners have anything else they would like to discuss? All right, with that, I'd ask for a motion to go into closed session to discuss personnel matters pursuant to KRS 618101F, pending and proposed litigation pursuant to KRS 618101C, and matters which are required to be discussed in privacy pursuant to KRS 618101A, including but not limited to KRS 61878, 1CI, and KRS 61872, sub 6.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.